Hello, welcome back to the Bookcast Club, a podcast for readers. I'm Jenny, coming to you from Norwich in the UK, and I'm joined by both Belle and Sarah today. Belle from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia, and Sarah from the Netherlands. It's the episode we don't necessarily look forward to every year, but you guys seem to love, and we will be talking about the Women's Prize for Fiction today. We're going to be talking through the shortlist, discussing the books one by one, sharing our own reactions, looking at the wider long list, and finally choosing the novel we think should win. But first, hello both. Welcome back. How are we doing?
Hello.
Hey. Morning.
Hello.
Morning, evening.
Or evening for me.
What time is it with you, Belle?
It's like almost 7 p.m.
Okay, yeah.
Sunday
Cool.
night.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Like 9:30 here. 10:30 with you-ish, isn't it, Sarah?
Yes. Yes, in the morning? That means
Yeah.
10:30, right? Yes. 10:30 in the morning. Yes. And there's a marathon happening, which I didn't know was happening outside my house. So we were just... I've closed the curtains and shut the windows.
Do they literally run past your house?
They're on the intersection, which is only like, I don't know, 40 meters or something from our door. 50
Cool.
meters, so it's not...
Is it a big one, like a huge, big event?
It seems to be.
Yeah.
They've closed the roads. I don't know.
Okay.
It's
Lots of cheering happening.
It's the Utrecht Science Park Marathon if people live in the Netherlands. So I
Cool.
don't know. There's been a lot of music playing. They started setting it up at like 5:30 this morning. So we were like, oh, great.
Oh, fun.
Hello.
Yeah, I can't hear anything. We'll find
good.
out when I go to edit. I'll be like, oh, that cheering in the background. It'd be lovely. I'm sure it'll sound great. Women's Prize. I'm just going to do a little intro to the Women's Prize, just for anybody who may not know the background. So the Women's Prize for Fiction was founded in 1996 to celebrate and champion fiction written by women in English and published in the UK. It remains one of the most influential literary awards in the English-speaking world and is awarded annually to the best full-length novel written by a woman and published in the UK during the previous year. The winner receives £30,000 and the famous Bessie statuette. This statuette, I think I've only seen it for the first time this year. I'm assuming it's been around since the prize has been established. But
I've seen it rotating slowly when they have their live streams.
Maybe that's the only time I've seen it. Yeah.
Or is that the Oscars one? I don't know. I think I've seen
I
it.
Googled it when you guys, I read it in the note. And I Googled it. It's really cute. I like it.
It is. It's really
Maybe
good.
I haven't seen it. Maybe I have
Sweet.
to give the Oscars one. I need to look it up.
But I feel like I've only seen it in like recent
It's like the
times,
Oscars
maybe
one, but if like an artist made it out of bronze.
Yes, exactly it. That's exactly it. Anyway, the inspiration for the prize was the Booker Prize of 1991, when none of the 6 shortlisted books was by a woman, despite around 60% of novels published that year being by female authors. This year's judging panel is chaired by former Australian Prime Minister Julia Gillard and includes poet and novelist Mona Arshy, author and broadcaster Salma El-Vadani, writer and comedian Cariad Lloyd, and author and DJ Annie McManus. And then I pulled this quote from the Women's Prize website. While this year's shortlist spans an incredible breadth of themes, geographies, time periods, and literary styles, the 6 shortlisted novels each interrogate the wealth of roles women play in society, the power they hold, and the extent to which they choose or are able to wield it. Other shared themes include individual agency within societal and relationship constructs, human connection, and the joy of literature, centering very different but unforgettable protagonists, all eliciting powerful emotional responses from the judges. So that was their criteria, if they have one, for the shortlist. We've done this every year, I feel like, for the past... forever. I don't know. Maybe since we started the podcast, we've covered the Women's Prize. I feel like every year we have a little moan and we say we're not going to do it, but then we get swept up in the excitement of it all.
This might be off air, Jen.
Yeah.
I don't think you actually complained on the podcast before.
I feel like we definitely, maybe in bonus episodes, we've suggested that maybe we won't want to do it one year, but inevitably it comes around and we all get swept up in the excitement of the long list being announced. But before we sort of dive into the books, what did you think this year when that long list was announced? Because Sarah, you've gone all in this year.
Well, No, I haven't read the whole shortlist, which is
Well,
not
no.
going all in, I would say.
You've read the shortlist, not the long list, right?
Yeah, I was very tripped up, as I'm sure Belle was as well, by Julia Gillard being named the chair. I remember that last year. I was like, what the fuck? So Julia Gillard is Australia's only female prime minister, and people will know her from, there's a very famous speech that she did about misogyny in politics. That is what she's like best known for worldwide, I would say. And I know she lives in London now, and she does
Okay.
work
Oh,
with
does
something to
she?
do with, yeah, and she does something to do with getting women in positions of power, or like something to do with the EU or something like that. She has some. I should look this up, but she does something to do with that. So it's a
Cool.
it's a reasonably salient choice, but she's not a literary person at all. What was the question you asked me? What did I think of? What?
Yeah, when the long list was announced, because usually we are slightly reluctant to dive in. It feels like a lot of work, and we see the long list, we're like, oh god, okay. But what did you think this year?
I was not. I thought fine. Sorry, I haven't got a good answer. I wasn't very swept up by the hype. I was happy to sit this one out, but here I am nonetheless.
Having read the entire shortlist.
You guys have done
What
very,
about you,
very
Belle?
well. I
Thank you.
can't say that I. I'm sorry, the cats are jumping all over the bed. I can't say that I was like too. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it was when the shortlist came out. I felt like it was a more accessible list of like shortlists than I've seen in more recent years. In that, maybe I looked at most of the books and thought, oh yeah, wouldn't mind reading that. I'm just like impressed by you guys having got through so many in such a short amount of time. I spoke to Sarah like last week and you had like 4 on the go. And
Yeah,
managed
Belle was
to
making
finish
fun of
them all. Yeah.
She was like, you won't finish them. I was like, they were quite short. Jenny, no offense, not a very good question. I don't think Bill and I had very good answers for that.
No.
You might want to cut that old thing.
I thought you were going to tell me how excited you were by the whole thing this year.
Yeah, Bill and I like, hello.
We're like, same as ever.
It was all
Not
right.
that bothered.
Yeah.
I think we've got caught up in the excitement more as we've got towards the shortlist, which, Sarah, do you want to tell us what the shortlisted books were this year?
Sure. So they are Flashlight by Susan Choi, Dominion by Addie E. Sitchins, The Correspondent by Virginia Evans, The Mercy Step by Marsha Hutchinson, Kingfisher by Rosie Kelly, and Heart the Lover by Lily King. So we've got quite an indie press representation this year. So a lot of them come from indie press, which is really nice because often prizes like this you will find a lot from the big publishers. That's a nice thing about this year. And we also can see that 4 of the 6 books are actually debuts, and we'll highlight those as we go through. But it's a nice kind of a fresher list in terms of where they're coming from this year, I would say.
Should we dive in? Oh,
Yeah.
That's not Belle, by the way.
There's no way to turn that off. That's 24/7. Just
She's
between that and like
right.
the cat's just like absolutely wrestling on every surface in the house. That's what my house sounds like at the moment. So sorry.
I love it. Right, should we dive in? I think this has done this in alphabetical order by author. So, Sarah, you're up first.
So we will start with Flashlight by Susan Choi. So this is a novel that focuses on a small family. You've got the parents, Cirque and Anne, and their daughter, Louisa. And they are living in the US, basically. And the novel starts when Louisa is 10 years old and she is walking along a beach in coastal Japan with her father, Cirque. So the family normally lives in the US, as I said. Cirque is a Korean migrant, and they are all staying in Japan for a while because Cirque has an academic posting there. And so they go off on for this walk in the opening chapter, and hours after they go for this walk, Louisa wakes up washed on the beach, and her father is missing and presumed to be drowned. So that's the sort of that single mysterious night becomes the fault line of the novel, and everything sort of spans out from there. What happened before to lead up to that event, what happened after in the wake of Cirque's disappearance, and it covers a huge span of decades. So it's a very, very big book in terms of scope, going across all these decades, across many continents, and it's looking at sort of absence, secrecy, identity, and what makes us the people that we are, how we are informed by things that happen to us, and what we become. So it sounds very vague, but lots and lots and lots of stuff happens in this novel. So Susan Choi, she's one of the more established writers on the shortlist, actually. So Flashlight is her 6th novel, and it's published by Jonathan Cape. And other people will know her from books like Trust Exercise, which won the National Book Award, and Flashlight you might also be familiar with because it was nominated for the Booker Prize last year. So this is its appearance on the Women's Prize shortlist. I believe it was shortlisted for the Booker Prize.
I think it was shortlisted.
Could be wrong. Yeah. So it's definitely, you probably would have seen her name sort of floating around if you don't know her books. I think I'm the only one who read this one, right? So I just...
sorry. I think it's the only one with only one person having read it. The wait on this one at my library was huge.
Yeah,
which I'm really surprised by, because I'm like, buy more copies of it. It's had the huge wait list since it was shortlisted for the Booker. So I thought maybe they'd buy another copy, but they didn't. So it didn't come through in time for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those books I think it's going to have readers because it's won the National Book Award, so it's got the American focus. It's had the big British, the Booker Prize attention, and now it's got the Women's Prize. So it's just sort of going to be pulling from readers from all over the place, really. Yeah, this is a big novel. I'm not sure what the page length is, maybe 500 pages thereabouts, but it starts. So this is the sort of central point, is that disappearance of Cirque in the beach, and then it actually goes back way to the beginning to his childhood, and then it spans all the way through until the end of Louisa's life, basically. So it's sort of his childhood all the way through to his child's the end of his child's life. So it's 2 generations basically, and it jumps back and forth in time. It's got this sort of non-linear timeline. It's a very good novel. It's very well done. She knows exactly what she's doing, Susan Choi. It's a very deliberate novel. The characters are very, very well drawn. They're very deliberate. There's a lot of complexity in this novel around trauma and the dynamics of the characters. So the 3 sort of main characters, who are Cirque, the mother Anne, and Louisa, they all have their own very complex stories and traumas. So Anne, for example, actually is developing, she has something wrong with her body physically, and that's sort of the ongoing thread for her, is that she can feel that there's something wrong, and the doctors can't figure out what it is. She's told a lot. She has that experience of women who go to doctors and say there's something not right. She's told a lot that she's fine, that it's like an attitude problem. This coincides with when they start living in Japan, and she's American, so she's told it's like culture shock, you just don't like it here. And there's this sort of duality of her body becoming, she feels not right in her body, and she also doesn't feel right in the place that she lives. So there's this sort of duality with that. Cirque has a very, very complex story. He's a Korean migrant to the US, but he actually grew up in Japan. So he doesn't feel Korean, he feels Japanese, and his family actually still live in North Korea, and so he doesn't really know what's happened to them. There's a lot of mystery around them. He's quite angry at his parents at choices that they made and how they raised him. And in the US, he doesn't talk about his childhood at all. He doesn't talk about his background, or so they don't really understand each other very well. And then Louisa is very traumatized, obviously, from the disappearance of her father. She is going back and forth to see different psychiatrists. She steals a lot, and there's a very sort of complex trauma story with her as well. So there's a lot in this book, and it just sort of unfolds more and more, really. More and more details come out. More things have happened with Anne. She has had a sort of a past life with a previous marriage, so there's all sorts of details around that. Yeah, as I'm sort of saying it, I'm like, there is a lot in this novel. So yeah, it's a big hitter. It is really, really good, really, really well told. I will also say it's quite dark, and a lot of the stuff happens. I wasn't actually prepared for just how dark it would be. So some of it even parts of it end up in North Korean prisoner of war camps, and it's very, very grim. So it's excellent. It's well told. The characters are great. Very literary, very dark, and I would liken it to books like A Narrow Road to the Deep South, Narrow to the Deep North. What's it called? By Richard Flanagan.
North. Yeah, close.
Thank you. Narrow to the Deep North by Richard Flanagan. These kind of long, detailed, intricate looks at these kind of complex, deep traumas. So it's very, very good.
Heavy.
It's a heavy hitter. I wasn't prepared for just how heavy it would be. I was like, oh my God. And I had to sort of read it at tactful times. So it wasn't a one to be reading just before bed, that is for sure. But it has stayed with me, and I can remember the details of the book very well. It's very, very well told. Sometimes a very traumatic book like that, you don't really, you just like, oh, that was horrible. But I remember a lot of the details that actually happened. It's very complex.
So do you think I'd like it?
I think you would appreciate it. I don't know if you would like it. It's very dark. There is a lot of stuff about the stuff with Louisa the child. I really, really liked that. Those elements of the book, and I think you would like those as well. But some of the parts around with the parents, especially the dad, is quite dark. But it is very, very, very good. But there's the complexities with like the mother's illness and Louisa's trauma. I think you would really appreciate. It's very, very intelligent, like very deliberate. She clearly is trying to tell her that she knows about stuff. If you know what I mean. It's very, it's very good.
Yeah, it was one of the ones that weirdly didn't. I think I might have got in early, maybe even when it was on the long list, because, I really had a struggle getting stuff from my library as well. But weirdly, this came up just a couple of days ago, so I've got it, but I haven't had a chance to read it.
Give it a whirl.
Fat book, but I'll see. It might be a bit too dark for me at the moment. I think I'm needing a little bit.
Yeah, if I was to offer criticism to it, I would say that I wish there was some more light in it. Like, it just is hard to pull out. I know that I'm just talking about how like complex and traumatic it is. I wish there was some element of light in it. I kind of needed that. I know that in life that's not always realistic, and there's like many things. There's a lot of stuff about the sort of North Korea, China, Japan relationships there, because you have Sirk's family living in Japan and North Korea. That's just such a horrible situation. I'm like, God, I know that it's not like realistic to have brevity here or like lightness, but I really needed it. It's very bleak in some parts.
I feel like, you have to be in the right headspace to get into or get through those sort of heavy books, when even though you can appreciate that, like, this is real life and things that happen to real people, and life is often very heavy. Sometimes it's still just hard to get through. At different times in your life. So maybe it's one I put on the back burner for now. It sounds good.
It does sound good. It's clearly the big chunky historical fiction novel on the list, isn't it? Because I feel like that has to be the biggest book. Everything else was fairly short.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that big. It's just bigger.
It's not as big 500 pages.
Yeah, for how much is it? Like...
Yeah, it could have been bigger.
Sounds more like a 700-pager, but they're pretty brief, the other books.
Yeah. Shall we move on to the next one? Let's go. The next one is Dominion by Addie Kitchens. This was published by Europa Editions. I've just pulled my blurbs from the Women's Prize website. I'm really bad at summarising books. Mainly because I read them and then completely forget the plot straight away. So I thought the Women's Prize blurbs were quite good, so I've cheated and pulled mine from there. In the town of Dominion, Mississippi, Reverend Saber Winfrey is more than a preacher. From his pulpit at the Seven Seals Baptist Church to the airwaves of his local radio station, he exerts influence over every aspect of society. By his side is wife Priscilla, who types up his sermons and raises their 5 sons, favouring the youngest, Wonder Boy. Handsome and adored, Wonder Boy is destined to carry on his father's legacy, but after a violent altercation with a stranger, Wonder Boy's actions send shockwaves through the community. Told through the perspectives of the women who love these 2 men, this Morrisonian, God-troubled novel illuminates the pervasive sins of the patriarchy and the bargains women strike to survive them. I assume by Morrisonian they mean Toni Morrison? Is that the reference they're making there?
I would assume so. It also reads like her, right?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense then. So Addie E. Kitchens is a debut novelist. She's one of the debut novelists on the list, but I think she's a fairly established writer, so her work has appeared in The New Yorker, The Paris Review, the Oxford American's Best of the South, Midnight and Indigo Speculative Fiction Anthology, and various other publications. So although she's a debut novelist, I think she's quite a established writer. I think Sarah and I read this one. I've only recently finished it. I read it physically, read the ebook of it. So this is narrated by 3 different women. I think it's 3 different women. I'm all right. So this is already establishing how I felt about the book slightly, is I did feel like I mixed up the women in the book quite a lot. It took a while to get into the kind of rhythm of who was narrating when, but it's the wife, Priscilla, so the mother, Wonder Boy's girlfriend, she's called Diamond, and now I can't remember who else narrates it, Sarah.
I don't think there was anyone. I thought it was just those two. And then there's bits of the sermons of the Sabre throughout.
Yeah, so
it's mostly from Priscilla's perspective, I would say.
Yes, with Diamond jumping in every now and again. I thought it was quite clever how, so like each section of the book starts with those sermons, the typed up sermons. I thought that was a clever way of bringing Sabre Winfrey into the book, like the irony of the sermons he was doing compared to his behavior, because obviously he's not one of the narrators, so you just see all the action from the kind of women's perspective. I really enjoyed that in the book. I did feel overall that it was quite short, and again, you talking about Flashlight has made me think this for me could really have done with being fleshed out a lot more, because I think it's only about 200 pages long and it covers some pretty significant events in this family's life that I felt like it rattled through quite quickly. I don't know if you felt like that, Sarah.
Yes. I felt it ended a little prematurely. It sort of implies the conclusion. There's quite a lot of it sort of ends with the main character Priscilla, there's quite a big character arc for her.
Yes.
And I felt it kind of ended just at the point where her character was starting to really develop into something interesting. So her character arc is really the last sort of 50 pages. I was like, okay, this is some really cool like development. Like she really changes as a person, and I feel like you didn't quite get to see the end point of all of that.
No.
So I could have done with another 50 pages or something, I think.
Yeah, and I feel she ends the book. I try not to give too many spoilers away, but she ends the book with Diamond, who's the girlfriend who's pregnant with Wonder Boy's child, and it was wrapped up so quickly at the end. I couldn't actually quite work out what had happened. I guess the whole point is that actually her and Priscilla are supposed to have had this like turning point in their lives, and they're gonna like break free of these men in their lives. But her particular story wrapped up so quickly within like I want to say 5 pages. You got the resolution as to what happens in her life. And it felt to me like that it did kind of feel like a debut. And I don't mean that in the negative sense that like, it wasn't written well. It was written really well. But I felt like maybe if what she's used to writing is like short stories or novellas, that maybe she'd struggled with the jump to full length novella. Yes. And I felt like this could have been really fleshed out. It was like the actual story, the plot, I thought was really good, but there was a few points in it that I thought this really could have done with being fleshed out more. There's one inciting incident that happens that kind of it's the projection for the whole story. And now I can't remember if it's being narrated from the women's perspective. Do we suddenly get narration from Wonder Boy? Does that happen? Like, this is what I can remember when I'm thinking back on it.
It sort of goes in Wonder Boy's perspective. You do get perspectives from Wonder Boy sometimes. I've forgotten that because as the novel goes on, that becomes less and less the case. But yeah, at the beginning, certainly you do.
Yes.
That's right. So it's actually he is the third narrator.
Yeah, that happens involving him. Yeah, I couldn't remember. And again, that happened so quickly and I felt like there was so much to unpack there. And yes, I enjoyed this one quite a lot, but I was left wanting more by the end, was my general feeling about this one.
Yeah, I definitely had to reread every scene where something very significant happened. I had to reread it because
If you weren't paying
you would sort of miss it.
attention.
Yeah, you'd have to be
Yeah.
have your wits about you.
Were you listening to it?
No, I read this.
You read it.
I also really enjoyed this. I agree with everything you're saying. I think it needed a little bit more detail. There were some slight pacing elements where, especially with some of the characters, some of the stuff was a little bit too implied in a very short story way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially sort of, I'm thinking about how Priscilla, some of the changes that happened with her, like suddenly she was this sort of much more self-assured person, but that was really cool. It was a really cool character arc, but it happened very quickly.
Yes.
And the first sort of 120 pages, she was one person, and then she sort of developed very quickly. So I really liked the way that it was exploring the sort of power of women, or the sort of restriction of women, and like the sort of patriarchal structure, all the kind of expectations of women that they put on each other, that is put on them, that sort of small town, sort of Baptist US. I love that kind of Mississippi Baptist small town, 1960s. I really love that kind of setting.
Yeah.
And that's where the
setting's
Morrison-esque element of it comes in. It's a very Toni Morrison kind of setting. It's not. That's about where the comparison of Toni Morrison ends. I would say that I think that's where they come from, but I wouldn't call the writing. I don't know. Like, I feel like it's kind of not a great comparison, but I see that a lot. Yeah. So I agree. I really did like it, but I feel like it needed another round of edits or something.
Yeah. I don't like saying this because it feels a bit disparaging, but I think it would make a really good film. It's not like she can rewrite it into a 600-page book now. So I'm like, if they made this into a film and fleshed out those bits, I think she had the bones of something really, really good here. And I would like to read more from her in the future because I did enjoy it a lot.
Agree. Yeah. I thought the ideas were really strong. I really would like to read more from her. Stuff that comes out of her mind, to be honest. She just has a really interesting point of view, I think. So as an author, definitely someone I would be interested in a second novel from, I think. But yeah, enjoyed.
More to come. Yeah, enjoyed. Right, it's me again. So next up is The Correspondent by Virginia Evans, published by Michael Joseph, who I think is an imprint of Penguin. Every morning, Sybil Van Antwerp sits down to write letters to her brother, to her best friend, to the president of the university who will not allow her to attend a class she desperately wants to take, to her favourite authors to tell them what she thinks of their latest books, and to one person to whom she writes often yet never sends the letter. Because at 73, Sybil has used her correspondence, witty and wise, to make sense of the world, but beyond the page, she has spent the last 30 years keeping the people who love her at arm's length, until letters from someone in her past force her to examine one of the most painful periods of her life. Now, Sybil must send the letters she has been writing for all these years and find forgiveness within herself in order to move on. Oh, a little bit about Virginia Evans. So this is one of the other debut novelists on the list. I think it's fair to say that she's had huge word-of-mouth success with this one. I'd heard about this before the long list was announced. A friend had pointed it out to me in a bookshop saying, like, I've heard loads and loads about this. I was put off by the cover. I've complained about the cover of this one. It's very twee. Yeah, and I was like, oh no, it doesn't sound like something I'd want to read. Virginia Evans, I think she's done her bachelor's degree in English literature. And then after starting a family, she went back to university to do her Masters of Philosophy in Creative Writing in Dublin, where she actually studied under Claire Keegan, which I thought was a very interesting factoid. I have talked about this one in a previous episode, probably in our first episode back. This doesn't happen often. I tend to try and read the odd book off the long list in the hope that it lessens my task having to read the short list. And actually, for once, one of them was shortlisted. But yeah, I loved this one. I guess it isn't my usual type of book. It's epistolary, which often annoys me. I don't normally get on with epistolary novels because I find the letters just not believable. I find that authors tend to write in letter form, but they should have just written like a normal novel, because they're overwriting in what I think would be in a letter. Whereas I didn't have that issue with this. It felt authentic, like she would genuinely write the long letters that she's writing, and I loved it. And I think the more you learn about her and her life, the sadder and sadder the book got towards the end. So yeah, this is a real surprise for me. Belle, you read this one, didn't you? You listened to it on audio.
Yeah, I actually haven't quite finished it. I'm almost at the end. I've been listening to it for the last 2 days. And yeah, I agree. It's just not the sort of book that I thought that I would enjoy, and I've really, really enjoyed it. It's also not the sort of style that I thought would make a good audiobook as well. Just in that similar way that I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get enough, I don't know, like flow out of reading letters, and they're letters and emails.
The emails as well, aren't they?
And I think it's because they're not all like very long formal letters. Some of them, and then some of them you do.
Some of them like little notes, aren't they? That she's just sending to her neighbour.
Yeah, it's really sweet, and you get some of them written back by, like you get some that she's written, and then some that you get written like back by whoever she's written to, and you get like a nice little flow of a couple of back and forwards, and then it sort of jumps on to the next person, or like, you know, the next month or something. And then some you only get the return letter. I just really enjoyed it. I didn't think that I would, but it's been really nice company for the last day and a bit.
I think that's a really nice way of describing it, actually.
I agree. Completely agree.
I was also thinking, I think her age makes it believable as well. She's at the start of the book, she's 72, 73, and she's, you know, late 70s, at least where I'm up to. You get this really nice spans of her life, though, throughout it, even though she's only writing at the end of her life. There's a lot happening that's been like unresolved issues from sort of earlier times, or, you know, important traumatic life events that happened, you know, maybe when she was 30, when she had young children, that obviously have really shaped her life. So they're still sort of relevant, or still things that are coming up. And yeah, it's a really, really lovely snapshot of, like, you're getting little snapshots of her past, but it pieces her life together really well. And it, in a way, it's also like an ode to letter writing, because, you know, she said she's probably got hundreds, if not into the thousands of letters that she's kept. For her entire life, she's been a letter writer, and they sort of tell her story and like multiple sort of facets of that life that she's lived. She sort of wonders, you know, what's the point? At certain times she's wondered, like, what's the point in writing, or in keeping them all? And yeah, I think the answer is this book, that you've got this lovely story of her life captured, in the letters she writes and receives.
Sarah, have you started this one?
Yeah, I'm making my way through the audiobook. I've only listened to the first sort of couple of hours, but I completely agree with what Bill's saying. I also am not the sort of person who like is drawn to an epistolary novel, and often, like Bill said, the audiobook's quite annoying, especially because they read out like the email addresses and everything. For some reason, it's not annoying.
Is it narrated by different?
Yeah, you have a different
narrators?
person for every one. There's like 8 narrators, which is pretty cool. I just realised this is going to kind of be the end. This sort of novel format won't be like feasible for much longer, because as time goes on, it's going to be less and less a thing to have like a compilation of letters, emails, I guess, but that's a bit shit. Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this. I'm to be honest, I'm quite impressed by it. Like, I really like the way it's telling the story, and I'm finding it really intriguing, just like you guys are. And I'm really enjoying it. Like, no other. Good. It's just really good. I'm really 100% agree with what Bill said. I think it's really good. So
she has a really interesting life as well. Like, it's just, I'm really loving her as a character. she used to be a clerk for a judge, and she had 3 children and lost one of them, and sort of she talks about how her work like played a role in her sort of getting through that time in her life. And then I don't know, it's just talks about her marriage, and then she's got these friendships that have sort of carried through, some of which, you know, you never meet the other person, like she never writes to them, but they're just sort of characters in her real everyday life. And yeah, some of which she keeps correspondence with, and so you get like a little bit more of an insight, and you hear about all the gossip and everything that's going on in everybody else's life. And it's, yeah, it just feels like having a friendship with a 72-year-old who's trying to sort of impart some wisdom on you, but also, you know, tell you about the men that are trying to court her, and yeah, just talking about, I don't know, the trials and tribulations of aging as well. And
she's very believable as well, because I really like, so she emails a guy who is he a Syrian refugee? Does she find out? So she finds out all this detail from this chap that she's emailing at like DNA, one of those sort of ancestry websites. And you think, how would you even get into this conversation via email? But it's all really believable how because she's such a busybody, she ends up kind of getting herself into this person's life. And it's just, I just really, really loved it. If it's not my favorite book of the year by the end of the year, or at least in like top 3, I'll be really, really surprised. And it's sad. Like, it's sad at the end, but like you were saying, Sarah, where there was no light and no brevity and flashlight, this is what's done really well in this book, I think, is bringing lightness into it throughout, because of the other correspondence she has with other people. I think if it was just the correspondence between her and her daughter, and I can't remember who else she's writing to about her sort of you know, her children and the loss of her child, that would have been a lot. And there was obviously more to her life than that incident. And I think that's done really, really well in it.
I have to say my favourite bit so far is I'm really enjoying the author letters that she's writing.
Oh, yeah.
She writes to like Joan Didion, who Belle and I were literally just talking about last week on the Patreon episode. And then she's talking about Belle Cancer by Anne Patchett and other books that we have talked about on the pod as well. So it's I'm enjoying that aspect of it really. So there's lots to enjoy, like even from the very beginning of the novel before you're like really into the plot of it all.
And what does she say? She's like, authors are people as well, and everyone likes getting a letter, and most people will write you back. And then she's got all this like,
yes, they do write letters sometimes, don't they?
Yeah, Joan Didion and her have like an ongoing correspondence, and like I'm just close to the end, and there's randomly just a letter that I think is, you know, is quite a delayed reply to one that maybe she sent earlier from Joan Didion, just like talking about things in the author's like everyday life, like that she's obviously just like told Joan about, and Joan's like asking about, and she just signs off Joan, and it's just like, I don't know, you want to believe it. You want to believe that there's this lady Sybil is out there sitting at her desk in America writing back and forward to Joan Didion, and it's just lovely.
I believed it, loved it. Right, let's move on. I'm going to just drop in a little Patreon ad here. So we have a Patreon. So if you can't get enough of us, or you want more than just once a month on the main pod, you can join our Patreon, where we run a sort of pay what you want type model starting at £2, but £2 a month will give you access to all of our bonus episodes and our book club, of which we've just announced our next book club read. We're going to be reading On the Calculation of Volume 1 together on the 18th of July. Book club will be. So if you'd like to join in, then please do join us on Patreon. We do have a top tier if you want personalised recommendations and books in the post. But like I said, if you want more from us, it's very cheap. We're very cheap. And you can come and say hi over on Patreon. Cool. Right. Moving on, The Mercy Step. You're up,
all right,
Sarah.
The Mercy Step. So the next one is The Mercy Step by Marcia Hutchinson. So this one is set in the UK. It's set in Bradford in the 1960s, and the main character is Mercy, who is a young child of the Windrush generation Jamaican parents. So her parents have migrated to the UK from Jamaica, and she was born in the UK. So she is really deeply craves her mother's attention. That's sort of the main thread throughout the book, and she has to battle for that attention and for that love with her siblings. She's got quite a lot of siblings, and her mother, as her mother's ardent faith, her mother is very, very faithful, very religious, and the sort of background of their family is that her father is very abusive, so she's sort of trying to get close to her mother, trying to avoid her father, trying to negotiate and battle with her siblings, and is just sort of basically after some love and attention. So the novel starts off with her being in the womb of her mother, and then it covers the first 11 years of her life, and it's really exploring this very particular Windrush era generation and the sort of racism and violence and domestic violence that occurred in this very unique context. And the theme of the novel is that Mercy is completely brilliant. So she is struggling to find a good place in the educational system, and they have to move around a lot for various reasons as she's trying to sort of find her place and find children that she can be friends with, and feels very sort of left out of place and still just sort of desperately wants her mother's sort of sole attention is the point that it keeps coming back to. So Marcia Hutchinson herself, she was born to Windrush generation Jamaican parents in 1962, so I guess it's relatively auto-fiction-y. I'm not sure to what extent. She was the first pupil of her school to attend Oxford, and then she ended up working as a lawyer. She founded a publishing company. She won an MBE, and she was a counsellor. And then she became a full-time writer at 60. So she is a very, very accomplished woman, and you can definitely see a lot of elements of her in Mercy, and I've got Marcia Mercy. I'm not sure exactly how much self-insertion is there, but you can see a lot of her inspiration. So this is one of the debut novels on the list. This is published independently as well by Cassava Republic. So did you guys read this? Am I the one?
I DNF'd it.
You DNF'd it, okay.
I did. So I read 13% of it. I felt like I gave it a fairly good shot. So one of my things that I don't like epistolary novels, so the correspondent really surprised me. I do not like child narrators, and the opening chapters of this I really struggle, and I don't know if it's just how my brain works, but I just really struggle with that like conceptual stuff from like there's like this child is not narrating from the womb, surely. So I was already been annoyed by it in the opening chapters. I was like, no, I'm gonna keep going. Even if you tell me a child is precocious, that doesn't help get past the precociousness of or the need for a narrator to be that precocious in order for the narration to work. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it feels a bit forced to say she's a really precocious child and therefore can narrate this novel to this extent, and I just can't get past it. It's a very me thing. However, I was prepared to keep going because I mean it follows the span of her life, right? So if she gets older, or is she a child throughout the whole?
She ends as she's 11.
Okay,
it does get more. That becomes less jarring as she gets older. So when she's sort of 7, her attitude is a bit more salient. If that makes sense.
I was prepared to keep going. However, there's an incident that comes. It'll have come around the 13% mark where she's at like a family party and she's sat on her uncle's lap, and something sexual happens, and I was like, I'm out. I just can't read stuff like that. So it wasn't about the book or the quality of the book. It was the theme of it, and I can't do child abuse, and maybe it didn't go any further, but I felt like it was going to, and so I tapped out quite early on, which feels unfair, but at the same time, I don't think that's a reflection on the quality of the book. I think it's topic-wise, I just couldn't do it, so that was why it was a DNF for me.
So that scene, for people that are... So yeah, that's a fairly explicit scene. Did you finish the scene?
she's sitting on his lap and you know something's happening, that
Yeah,
as a
okay.
child she doesn't quite understand what's going on, but obviously as an adult reading it, you know exactly what's happening.
Yeah. So that's pretty unpleasant. He doesn't come back, so that's an
Okay.
isolated incident. But there are certainly, not as graphic as that, but there are some themes of exploitation. I would say that this happens much later, but there are certainly things at her school where some of the girls are being taken advantage of. None of it is that's by far the worst scene in the book, but it is
Okay.
a bit of a theme.
Yeah.
So there's sort of, I would say, isolated themes of child sexual assault, not to the extent that it's not a theme of the book, but it does happen.
Okay, good.
A bit. But that scene that you're talking about is the worst one by far.
Okay.
But the thing around it, and I think what the point of the novel there is how little voice she has, like what's actually done about that, the sort of strong norms about what you do there. Yeah, that's kind of the point of. There's a couple of different aspects of it where she is treated not very well, and she tries to sort of get adult help, and that sort of nothing really happens. So there's a lot about her sort of lack of voice or lack of agency, I guess. Yeah, I listened to the audiobook. I really like the audiobook. It's narrated by the author herself, and I think it's really worth, if you're an audiobook person, it's
I
a
was
really good way to
listening
take it
to it.
in, I think. Especially, I really like is it called Jamaican patois? Was it patois if it's Jamaican?
Yes. Yeah.
The Jamaican patois. I really like. I like listening to it. I find it a little bit hard sometimes to quite understand what's going on the page, but when it's spoken, I find it quite easy to follow. I liked the themes very much. I really liked the setting. I thought there's many elements of the novel that I really, really liked and I thought really worked. What I didn't think worked very well, and you've already sort of flagged this, Jenny, is Mercy's character herself. There was a sort of mix of this more abstract, like she's narrating from the womb, but then it becomes quite realistic. Then it kind of goes back to the womb. I feel like it sort of couldn't really make up its mind whether it was sort of mystical and weird or if it was just sort of normal, narrated in a normal way. And there are elements of Mercy's character where she's so intelligent that it just kind of didn't really I couldn't suspend my disbelief, really. So she's very, very smart. She understands all of this stuff going on, but then there were many times where she didn't understand what was going on and it felt like it just needed to be that way for the plot. So I felt like her character, it went a bit too far, I think, with the kind of precocious child. Like, it was like, we get it, she's very smart. So that was kind of like done again and again.
Might have annoyed me all the way through then.
Yeah, I think it would have. I don't think you should keep reading it. I think it would definitely annoy you all the way through. And there's elements of it where she sort of like, she'll understand. So she doesn't understand where babies come from. This is when she's like 12 or something, 13. Oh no, it must be a bit earlier, 8 or 9. But then she does go to a bank and talk about interest rates with a bank manager, and that's clearly because obviously the interest rate part of the story needs to move on. And so I'm like, I feel like I learned about sort of sex and interest rates in the opposite order. Like, I don't feel like it's a bit of an unusual.
Yeah. Okay.
So like, I don't feel like I didn't know about compounding interest. So it's, some elements of it are just kind of, they obviously need to be there for the plot, and it was kind of restricted a little bit, I think, by the child narrator. And the child narrator I don't normally mind, but it wasn't quite as well done. I kept actually thinking of The Lamb by Lucy Rose, which we read for book club.
Actually, that's quite a good example of a good child narrator, I think.
Yeah, which, I mean, I didn't love that book, but the child narrator is done very, very well. And the tone and level of knowledge that the child narrator has is like at exactly a precise level for the whole book. And the author kind of caters the story around that child narration.
Yes.
Whereas this one, often there would be this weird point of insertion where Mercy would explain things to you as the reader, which just seemed silly for like a child narrator. Things to do with like her parents' marriage, for example. There's sort of she wants them to get divorced, and she's like explaining the intricacies of why they should get divorced, which is a very odd thing to read from a child's perspective. Whereas in the Lamb, there's obviously a lot of complexities with the mum's relationships, but you kind of miss out on that because you have to sort of really read between the lines. And I thought that was really done really well in that book. And then this book, not so well. I'm like, I don't need you to sort of explain
it to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, but it was, it was interesting. Like, it's a cool very interesting period of time, and like, yeah, very unique struggle. So I certainly learned a lot reading the book. I just thought it had some shortcomings, I think, with the narrator.
That you said this is one of the independent publishers, didn't you? So Cassava Republic are a Nigerian publisher, and this is their first book to be shortlisted for the Women's Prize on their 20th birthday. So they've been around a very long time. So I think it's one of the nice publisher stories on the list. I'm going to move us on because we're going to be getting too long otherwise. So Kingfisher by Rosie Kelly. Belle, you're up.
So this was another independent publisher, published by Sarah Band. Kingfisher is set in the UK. I think it's set, I want to say it's set in London or outside London. It's set in England somewhere. It's essentially about the protagonist is a creative writing academic who becomes infatuated with his colleague, the poet. And it is not long before this begins to threaten his relationship with his partner, Michael. So I think the protagonist is his mid-30s. He finds that the poet is everything he isn't, and she has everything he wants. So she's a successful author who lives this beautiful life of being an academic in the college and living between a flat in the city and this big, beautiful white house set somewhere backing onto woodland. He has had some sort of minor success with some poetry and is, I think, just in like a summer term as a guest academic at the college where he meets the poet. He generally writes about steel and sex, and she's quite the opposite. She dreams about the movements of swallows and is quite obsessed with birds. Essentially, he starts this relationship with the poet and sort of slips from his old life and his relationship with Michael, which sort of soon starts to crack around the edges, and becomes extremely sort of fixated with the poet and falls quite sort of from lust to love. It's interesting. It paints this like really fantastic picture of becoming sort of quite hypnotized and falling so deeply into obsession with this older woman as a 35-year-old. I think she's about just under like 20 years her senior. Suddenly the poet becomes unwell, though. She, I think it's mentioned that she's had cancer and a mastectomy sort of at some stage, maybe 20 years prior, and her cancer unfortunately comes back, and it changes their relationship. He goes from sort of being this like boyfriend or sort of visiting lover to her carer, and it's quite sort of like a change in the tone of their relationship. He tries sort of to learn to become selfless, and yet is also struggling with the imbalance in their relationship as well, as he sort of declares his love for her, and it becomes clear that the tone of the relationship is quite different to her. She sort of refuses or sort of doesn't quite seem to declare her love for him.
I was going to say, did you listen to the audiobook of this one?
I did. I listened to the audiobook. Did you guys listen to the audiobook too?
Yeah, I listened to the audio. It was really, really well narrated. I feel like it's one of the best narrated books I've listened to. Is he Northern in it? I can't remember. Was he Irish?
I felt like he was Irish at the start, but then I changed my mind at the end.
I can't remember. He's very distinctive. I have to look this up. But yeah, whoever the narrator is, I thought was really, really good. Yeah, I love this one. I think originally I was going to read this, like, because when we were deciding who was covering the prize, I was like, I'll do Kingfish because the library's got it now. And actually, when I listened to it, it's like, that was really good. So I told you guys, because again, it's quite a short one, and I told you too how good it was. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I thought it was really complex to the amount for such a short book. And this is where this one I feel like did it better than Dominion, like the complexities in it that she showed through the relationships, I thought was really, really well done. So I mean, you talking about his mother dying, Michael, his partner, is the one that goes to the hospital and is like, she's an awful woman. I can see why he doesn't want to have anything to do with her. But his partner is like encouraging him to still have a relationship. He's the one that goes to the hospital. And she's awful to him. Like, she's homophobic. She's horrible. And yet he still shows up for her. And yeah, I just thought the complexities in these relationships that she was showing in such a short novel, I thought was really, really good. And this is her debut as well. And I would never have clocked this as a debut. I thought it was really, really well done.
I became quite convinced as well. I forgot that I was reading this for the Women's Prize for Fiction, but I became quite convinced that this was a real story.
Yeah,
and I was like, this is a female author. It can't be a real story. In that, I'm like, maybe they've just changed the gender and it's actually like a completely true story. It was just, it was super complex in the way that, like, if you couldn't tell by all my babbling, super complex in the way that it felt like someone's real life. It wasn't neat. It wasn't tidy.
Yeah, I just looked up the narrator. He's from West Yorkshire. So that's
it was Northern. I was like, he
has a beautiful accent.
But
and
now
he
I'm
does
like,
the different accent, like Jessica's accent that you were talking about before. Well, I love her accent. She's got that kind of like posh Scottish accent. It's my favorite accent. I loved her bits for that, basically for that reason. Yeah, I loved this. I completely agree. I love the complexity in it. Like you were saying, the sort of not better version of Dominion. That's not true, but these sort of very complex relationships. I do have some thoughts about it being on the list as in general. So maybe talk about that when we talk about the winner. But as a story, I loved it. And then there was something about the audiobook. I listened to a lot when I was on a run, and there was something about the pace of it and the narrator. It was so absorbing. I kind of also, like you, Beth, kind of forgot that was it was like a women's prize book. It was just like so absorbing, his mind, the way he thought, and what was in his head. Yeah, I really liked it. I also liked the relationship. Like, he sort of has this established relationship with Michael. Then he starts sort of exploring this relationship with the poet. They also have quite good communication about this. So it's nice to see that kind of relationship on page. I think what they're sort of
really
exploring
well
this.
too.
Yeah, I really liked it.
No, I really liked it. And the other thing I liked is that even though the poet is, our narrator is our narrator and our poet is like a side character that he has an obsession with, she has so much power. And I think that's what I liked about it, is that she had so much power in this book. Yeah, she's just there in the background. And I loved that. I just thought it was so clever. I'm so glad this was shortlisted, because I would never have read this otherwise. I didn't think the cover was great. The title tells you nothing, although there's a beautiful reason for the title once you kind of like read through the book. So I'm just glad it was shortlisted, because I would never have read this otherwise. And I loved it.
Yeah, I agree. I liked that she was kind of a dick in the end.
Yeah, she was. I was like, mate, she
wasn't this ethereal creature.
Get out of that relationship. Like... She's not into you.
She was absolutely
just not that into you.
Yeah.
Like,
okay,
mate, she's
so
really not into you.
Jen, when you were saying the themes of the Women's Prize, something you read out really like spoke to the choice of this in the Women's Prize, I thought. I think it was a part where, I don't know. Oh yeah, like interrogates the wealth of roles women play in society and the power they hold. And I just thought that this was like the power that like the poet holds in his life, I think is like such a big theme in the book. And I guess like the right that women have to be dicks as well, and like to just, I don't know, I just thought it was surprising, but it was also really, I don't know, refreshing and nice. And then I kind of just loved that this like late 50s, like this woman in her late 50s was just having like this relationship where she was taking exactly what she needed from
Yeah,
it.
she
And
knew what she wanted in life.
yeah, yeah.
That was a good
And I
one.
think it also came around nicely in the end that like he then felt that it was okay to take from her in a way as well, which was like the whole roundabout story of that this was a story he was going to write in the end about her.
Right, and moves on. The last one, Heart the Lover by Lily King. This is you again, Belle.
So this is one that everyone will have seen in every single bookshop and all over social media for a while. This wasn't an indie publisher. It was published by Canongate, and it is Lily King's second, I think, like really big novel. So Lily King is one of the most established names on the shortlist, and she's widely acclaimed for novels including Writers and Lovers and Euphoria. So this is her seventh novel. And Heart the Lover actually fits in and around Writers and Lovers, I've been told. It's a standalone novel. I haven't read Writers and Lovers myself, but I believe that the protagonist in Heart the Lover is a character in Writers and Lovers. And so it sort of does a little bit. Heart the Lover jumps. It's set over like a ranging time from the author's college years into sort of adulthood when she has children. And so it's a bit of like a pre and post, like fitting around Writers and Lovers. It is set in a US university in the late 1980s and follows Jordan, as she's known as, but I think she's got another name anyway. A young writer who becomes involved with two English majors, Yash and Sam. She begins dating Sam, but slowly falls in love with his best friend Yash. The novel spans several decades and traces the life-altering consequences of the choices we make when we're young. And it circles back to the author's years later when a crisis reconnects the three of them. I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this novel. It was a very quick read. I think I read most of it on a single flight. I found the first 2/3 really easy to read and kind of light. They made me maybe moved a little bit like too fast for me, but I guess that was sort of the premise of the book, was that it spanned this whole lifetime, or most of a lifetime. But the last third really stuck with me, which is like an extremely emotional sort of part of the book where, yeah, I don't know if it's worth sort of like trying not to give too much away. Yeah, it does really just ask the question like what it means to sort of carry a love in a story that never really finishes or like comes full circle. And so she just writes about that love that lingers and doesn't necessarily have a perfect ending. What did you guys think? You both read this or just
I'm
Sarah?
only about 10% of the way in, so I know Sarah enjoyed this one, didn't you?
I loved this. This is my favourite one on the list by far. I really loved this. I don't know, it just got me. Right book, right time. You know, sometimes you have that. I really loved it was sort of like a more grown-up version of that kind of campus novel that I tend to really like. It felt like a mix between, it's like something halfway between The Secret History and The Paper Palace or something. Like this sort of
yeah. I love The Paper
summer.
Palace.
Yeah, it's like this sort of summer read that's got this seriousness that kind of talks about like love and college and all that kind of stuff, but then there's just like a very serious element to it later as well. So I don't know, this just hit I just love this. I listened to the audiobook. And I don't think it's like the most literary like book on the list or whatever, but I just it's just really right book, right time for me. I just adored it. I listened to it pretty much. It was one of those audiobooks where I just kept listening to it. Like it just sort of followed me around for like 3 days until it was done. Basically. So I just adored that mix of that sort of, I liked how it spent so long looking at the campus life, and they sort of like going to class to class, and you get that really detailed look at their kind of dynamics, and then it just moves on so quickly to the sort of broader strokes of her life. I know you didn't like that so much, but I felt like that I liked it kind of felt like life. You know how it sort of feels like when you're doing at university, it kind of moves really slowly and everything's really important and you focus on everything. And then when you get to your actual life, you're like, oh shit, like I can't believe I'm 35. Oh no, I'm 40. Oh my God. It kind of felt like life itself in that way, where it just kind of accelerated and accelerated. And I won't give any spoilers, but I really liked the way that it I think it took the seriousness of life very well, and it didn't romanticize what had happened in college too much. Like I feel like a lot of those kind of books might be tempted to put what had happened in college as being like what should have happened with her life, or these boys as being more ideal than they actually were. It didn't sort of have that completely rose-colored glasses on it, and so I just really liked the way that it just felt like a really adult view of you can tell that it's, I think, feel like an older author who's got it. It didn't feel like a novel written by someone in their 20s. Do you know what I mean? You can tell Lily King's slightly older. I feel like you can tell that it's someone who understands life and isn't going to be like, oh my God, college is so amazing and everything's great and everything that happens in it is what we should do.
I'm just sat here thinking, why am I getting flashbacks to another book now? It's because I'm thinking of Almost Life by Kieran Millward Hargrave, which I've talked about. You saying that, I think, was my issue with that book, is that it romanticized a relationship that I don't think was ever right or good in the first place. And yeah, you saying that her as like an older author, like not romanticizing those 3 years in college that you spend, which we all do, like they feel like really huge significant parts of your life, but as life goes on, like the person that you loved for the first year in uni is not the most important person you've ever met in your life. Yeah, it's really made me think that that's what my issue was with that book, is that that relationship happens when they're like 18 and they meet each other for 3 months. And yeah, I'm 10% into this, and I can already straight away, you can see what the dynamic of the three are. Like I've only really just been introduced to Yash and Sam, and I can see what's happening. So I really like that she's very quickly established kind of the relationship there. Yeah, I'm gonna finish this one, even though I've missed the deadline. I'm gonna keep going because I've heard a lot about her, and I have bought Writers and Lovers. That's the other one, isn't it? Prior to this book even coming out, I just haven't got around to reading it. So yeah, it would be nice to maybe find a new author to dig into if I enjoy her.
Yeah, I feel like she's a great summer reading person. I think she's going to be my kind of. When I finished this, I looked her up because I had this feeling that she was a more, I don't know, an older person.
Been around the block.
She's in her early 60s, and I feel like you can tell that in the most positive way. I mean that in a very positive way. She's got this great perspective on life, I feel, and I felt very fresh to me for this kind of story that you do read quite a lot about. The Paper Palace is kind of like that. It really romanticizes a relationship that could have been from like teenage,
and it doesn't go well. That's what happens.
No, but it's very like oh, if only life was different. You know, I feel like a lot of those books are like, oh, I made these choices and it could have all been different. And this book is about like, it feels a bit more realistic. Like this is life.
Yeah, I love the Paper Palace, so I'm gonna definitely keep going with this one.
Did you like it? But what was your sort of take, Belle? I don't know if
I really liked it as I was reading it, I think, and then that was only like a week ago, and I feel like I've forgotten a lot of the plot. And so I think it's done one of those things where like maybe if I just finished it today, I'd be like 4 stars, loved it. But I'm interested to see how much of it sticks around. It surprised me at the time that I was enjoying it more than maybe I thought I was going to, just from the fact that it was so popular that I don't know. Sometimes I get like lower expectations when things are super popular. And I've been in a lot of airports recently, and it's like every single little book stand that you walk past, it's like on the top. And, I've seen a lot of people walking around carrying it, which I think is great. I think anything that gets people into reading is fantastic. But sometimes it makes me think that sometimes those like popular fiction books, I don't know, enjoy the writing so much, or I'm not so much of a romance reader, but I did enjoy this more than I have other sort of romance books that I've read in recent years. So yeah, I liked it, but I think Correspondence probably still up there. It's probably still wins as in terms of popular fiction on this list.
Yeah, these two, Heart the Lover and Correspondence feels like the two like commercial books that have made it on this shortlist. I really quickly wanted to ask you about the long list and whether there were any on there that I don't think any of us have read anything else from the long list, but I think there might have been a couple that we planned to read anyway. So it was Wild Dark Shore. I feel like, have you read that one, Sarah? Actually,
I've literally got it right here.
No,
I've got it now.
I've read two others by Charlotte McConaughey. I've read Where the Wolves Are, or whatever it's called, and Migrations. Both of which I enjoyed, but I'm not chomping at the bit to pick up another book by her.
Bella's got the book in her hand right now.
Yeah, it just happened to be propping up my microphone. It's on my it's in my stack to be read soon, because that sounds sounds exciting to me.
The thriller on the list. And then there's A Beast's Links Towards Beijing by Alice Evelyn Yang is one that was on my list and that I've got from NetGalley, so I will read that one. I did see quite a lot of people discussing the fact that they thought that one should have been shortlisted over Flashlight, so I am intrigued to read it. I think it was the other kind of big family saga on the list, by a debut author from an independent publisher, so I think maybe there was a bit of disappointment that one hadn't been shortlisted over the big hitter. So yeah, I'm keen to still give that one a go. Shall we predict? Shall we make some predictions here? When is, we haven't said when the announcement is.
11th of June, I think, right?
11th of June.
So this will come out just before the announcement, I think.
Yeah, we definitely were doing this in a timely manner so we could publish this on time.
What do you think, Jen?
What do I think will win? Okay,
will win.
Let's do who we think. Let's do who we want to win first. So for you guys, who was your winner, Sarah?
Who is my winner? Yeah, it depends. Sorry, I'm really struggling. It depends on the question. It depends on but the one I enjoyed the most is Heart the Lover. Do I think it should win? No. I feel like, even though I haven't finished it, I feel like The Correspondent is like it's kind of my pick to win. I think I feel like it's
okay.
If they're talking about, so like Belle was talking at the beginning about how the shortlist, but you read out that quote, Bella, from the prize about how it's talking about like the role of women and that kind of thing. If they're looking at like which one does the best job at looking at the role of women in the world and like how women empower and all that kind of thing, Kingfisher does the worst job, I think, of that, because it does that, but it's largely about a man, really. And the woman who's in that is there because he's trying to have his own. He's like having insights about himself and whatever. So even though it does explore that, I think it does it the worst out of the six. Oh, sorry, that's out.
Oh, hello. It's the bed clock. I feel like the women in Kingfisher are like the worst representations of women. Like his mother's awful. The poet is power hungry in a certain way that probably isn't great, despite her terminal diagnosis. So although his friend is lovely, so I kind of agree with you on that one.
Yeah, so I think that one's out. Flashlight, I think, is the most literary, but that also doesn't explore that quite as much, I think. So if they're going for like the best like novel in terms of quality, I think probably Flashlight is maybe technically the best one. Doesn't really speak to women as much, a bit more than Kingfisher, but not quite as much. The Mercy Step, I feel, is going to be a big contender because it really speaks to the plight of women in a very specific time in the UK, I think. So for a British prize about women, I think it's, even though it does have its weak points, I can see a really, really strong argument for the Mercy Step winning, although it's very much an imperfect novel. Yeah, but then I feel like I felt The Correspondent is kind of my pick, even though I haven't finished it. That's my thoughts. Was that coherent?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. What about you, Belle?
It was. Well, yeah, I was just thinking, because Heart the Lover, I feel like that's been super popular, but I just don't really see how it really fits with, being like a deep exploration into women and the roles women play in society. And because I don't know, just it's a romance, so it's, I don't know, there's not too much exploration into that. I think so. I enjoyed Kingfisher the most out of the three that I've read. I understand I've not read the entire shortlist, but I kind of agree. I would like Correspondence to win, and I can see that winning.
It would be quite nice for a quite commercial book to win, because I feel like that doesn't really happen with the Women's Prize. I feel like they have commercial ones make the shortlist, but then they don't win because they're commercial and they don't. So I think it would be nice for it to win. Virginia Evans is also on like social media and just seems like the loveliest person. I think, who would I want to win? I loved Kingfisher. Like, honestly, I think that's the correspondent. I can't believe this has happened with the Women's Prize. This never happens. The Correspondent and Kingfisher, I think, will be in my top 3 books by the end of the year.
It would.
Did
be
I love
so
it because
nice.
the audio is so good? I don't know.
That lovely West Yorkshire lilt.
Yeah, was it that man which should be
but
the
it's a
opposite
man.
reason for it winning? That lovely man doing the Correspondent is the one I would like to win. Although I think Kingfisher's great. The book I think will win. I think Dominion might have a shout again for the reasons we have been discussing.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if this was an American prize, I would be putting Dominion by far. So I'm sort of wondering if it's such an American novel. I think it's, I'm unsure a bit. So
I agree with you on that. I feel like if they were trying to catch themselves not being biased just because it's American, I feel like they might go for Dominion. But that's me having not finished The Mercy Step. I felt like it was... I feel like the author's on the road to great things. I thought Addie Kitchens was really good, and she's got real potential, I think, to write something great in the future. Yeah, don't know. Maybe Dominion will win.
Because they're mostly British, so I feel like the Mercy Step will have, the panel will be more interested in the Mercy Step because it speaks to such a specific part of British history, like a very specific experience, and it's very female focused. So that's my thought. But yeah, I would put Dominion over it, but I just feel like it's too American in its story, which I don't think is a good reason, but it tends to be a bit more of a British prize, I think.
Maybe the chair, what's the Julia Gillard?
Julia Gillard, please.
Australian PM will chair them towards a unbiased decision. I don't know. Yeah, who knows? There we go. 11th of June is the announcement. Did we get it right? Probably. So
what's our conclusion? We think it will be Dominion or
the Mercy Step.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe the Correspondent, and I think we'd all like the Correspondent to win.
Are we allowed to pick 3 as our potential winner?
3 out of 6.
Also, Kingfisher, though, if you're not going to focus too much on it being about women, because I feel like we all...
Yeah, I love Kingfisher
so much.
In terms of the books, I feel like are worth people's time. For me, they were Kingfisher, The Correspondent, and Dominion. I think is worth reading.
Yeah, Dominion, I think,
from that shortlist.
I think I'm gonna double it. I think Dominion's my pick, and I really liked Kingfisher. But to be honest, I will be quite annoyed if it wins because I don't think it.
We don't like men, even sexy Yorkshire men that narrate audiobooks.
Unfortunately,
I just don't think it speaks to the as well to the criteria that we read out.
No, you're right, and that's why I wanted to ask you the question, because I know that we've had this conversation before. So, okay, Dominion.
But they did pick Piranesi, which I'm still annoyed about.
So they might pick it, or maybe they saw the outrage.
At least it was a good book. I didn't think Piranesi was a good book. At least Kingfisher is a good book.
Right, that's it. We'll find out if we're right. It's very exciting. We normally don't get to this before they've actually announced. Normally we're like too late to the game.
Look at us.
Yeah, we've already know who's won. I know, we're on time. Okay, so thanks everybody for listening. We hope you enjoyed our run through of the Women's Prize shortlist. As ever, we would love to hear from you. You can get in touch at the bookcastclub@outlook.com on email. We're on TikTok and Instagram, where we're at Bookcast Club. You can join our Patreon. And I just wanted to do a little reminder that we are giving away one of our hoodies. So if you are on Instagram, you'll have seen us wearing official Bookcast Club merch. And we have one hoodie to give away. So please go and check that post out on Instagram or on our free Patreon. You will find the question, and the deadline for that is the 17th of June. So thank you for listening, and we'll be back next month. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.